Welcome to the CDS Design Session 3. We'll talk about the data dictionary form and creation and search capabilities for CDS. Go ahead, Brenda.
Okay, yeah. Just meanwhile getting this editor or getting the code. Okay, let me explain about what is data dictionary. Okay. So data dictionary, you could say here it's a resource dictionary is the right word. We could say resource dictionary. It's a model that we try to use it in a specifically resource resolution component or a resource resolution function. Okay, where we try to model that external system data type or even input data type. Okay, so suppose if you are getting a data from input, then definitely it has to align with that model, and that model mostly we are trying to talk about the complex structure. Primitive, if you feel that if the particular type is a reusable primitive, then you can define a data dictionary, but that is not mandatory. If you are trying to define a primitive type, sometimes what happens if you want to define a transient variables, okay, or temporary variables, so in that case you may need not to define that data dictionary. If you feel that it is reusable across multiple places and to have a common way of identifying that particular property, then you can try to have a data dictionary for it, or resource dictionary, I could say. So finally, what I'm trying to say, it's like a resource dictionary. It's a model that we use to represent the data we capture as well as we receive from the external system during the process of resource resolution. And okay, if you look into that, it's mostly we are trying to. It's not like Tasca, and I'm trying to say that okay, this model is not a Tasca. It is a custom model. It is not a custom model means it is a model defined for CDS, not universal format. Okay, it is a model for CDS tool, and even later point of time, any system can make use of this data dictionary model to enhance the systems or to make use of the resource resolution component we develop in CDS. Okay, let me go to that how it looks like the data dictionary model. Okay, so you could persist or track that resource dictionary model in a backend your code cloud. It may be Git or Git repository. Okay, under that project called CCSDK apps components, we have a model catalog. Under the model catalog, we have those definitions. So basically, we have starter dictionary. So this is nothing but a reusable dictionary, and similar to the definition blueprint types like a service blueprints, right? So you can have your own direct structure service blueprints, and then just try to include a service specific resource dictionary in that case. Okay. Right now, we placed everything in a common place. We combined it together because it needs extra effort to identify that reusable stuff. So most probably in a Dublin release, we will try to understand what is reusable and what is a service-specific dictionary, and then we can try to move separately to that particular service dictionary, resource dictionary, I could say. Okay, let me take one sample and assume that resource dictionary, how we have categorized it. Before going into that, you want to understand that sources. Okay, sources means it's suppose mostly, as I said earlier. Okay, these dictionaries are used to retrieve the data and match that retrieve the data from that external system or anywhere else we could say, and match to our model actually. So it means like you are trying to define a data, and then that data we are trying to do it or trying to represent in our blueprint. So in that case, so it should be properly, it should have a proper type data format, and then we want to define, as you all know that we are working on completely self-service modeling, that even source system also it should be modeled. It means like at any point of time you can come with the source systems and just do that modeling, and if backend supports for that particular type, then automatically everything will work smooth. So that's the concept here. So for those, first you want to understand that it's a resource system. So basically, how we are collecting that resource system. Right now we have defined that resource system in a three-way. or I could say the four ways, okay, default, neglecting the default, but 4 ways we could try to get that resource data, okay. How? One is mostly we can access that information from a database, okay. So that's the reason we have a sample DB, DB source we have, and then other way of collecting the data is input. So we have a input, source input, and other way of collecting it's like REST actually, okay. So we can collect the data from REST systems, okay. If you try to fill that tomorrow gRPC or some other protocol comes into picture, then you can define your own source, okay. And even data also, think about like DB also, you may have n number of databases, okay. Just later I can talk about how we can model multiple data sources and inject that sources later point of time. But assuming that, okay, in abstract level, we have a possibility for now. It's accessing that database and providing from that input and taking from that REST services. It's like a backend services basically. And sometimes what may happen, so you may try to access the default, okay, default defined for that particular type, okay. So in that case, no, assuming that okay, I don't want to access anywhere, just understand it's like a hard-coded value, okay. It may be a hard-coded value there, okay. So in that case, that is a default. So we have a default. So like those, we have we want to define the source system. So this system, okay, if you look into that, this we will talk about later, okay. So assuming that, okay, the data we are getting from that resource system, okay, and how to process that data actually. So we may get a lot of information from from external system or database and all those things. How I'm going to correlate or represent that, okay, in my processing, okay. So that is defined by a data or resource dictionary, I could say, okay. So one example we have, it's okay, MD-SAL source, right? Assume that we have a MD-SAL. MD-SAL is nothing but REST, okay. So that when
are you sharing that example?
Sorry?
Are you sharing that example now?
Yeah.
Can you share your screen?
I'm not. Oh, okay. Oh, I thought I was sharing. Okay. Just okay. This is the directory where we have model catalog and resource dictionary and starter dictionary. We have like that blueprints. Okay, service blueprints. So here we are going to create one more directory with respect to service. Okay. So in that case, you can group the dictionary based on the services. Okay. So that your build and auto load process will take care of only loading those directories, okay, for your case actually. So need not to load all the dictionaries which is not relevant for you, okay. And as I said that, so we have a we have a source system, okay. That source system defined as a type, okay, that type. So we have defined as a source system as I mentioned here. So we have a default data, input and REST, okay. So four types of accessing that data. So in this case, we have defined that what are the things. Suppose if I want to connect, or if I want to create instance of REST. Instance of REST is nothing but defining a REST adapter or REST system. Okay. So one example, it may be ANA. ANA also exposes data in a REST. Okay. And then MD-SAL. MD-SAL also exposes in a REST. So if you are trying to deal with a REST-based application or REST-based retrieval, then you can use this model, that source REST model for those cases. And if you are trying to map with that input, okay, so input, then for this input it's a simple input, okay, source system, and default, okay, default also it's a simple, okay, both are very simple. And if it is a DB, then it has to follow this one, okay. The data dictionary has to align this format, okay, if you are trying to define a data dictionary, okay. So those definitions all defined as a node type, okay. These are all nothing but node types. I pass it here to take some question. Okay. Till now, what we have discussed, it's clear, or you need any clarification?
So essentially, when we create a data dictionary resource, we will have a option of which sources the users wants to use in order to support, the retrieval of data or gathering of data from input or from external system. And the question I have is the registration of new sources. That's going to be done through the catalog itself, right?
Yeah. Okay. So with respect to model, it is going to be on front end, but that backend system should support that new resources. So it means like implementation has to provide in a backend system, assuming that.
Right. Absolutely. Okay.
Okay. Before I move on, any specific information I want to? Okay. Just I will move on to that. That's some sample. Okay, MDSAL. Okay. So MDSAL, as I said, okay, MDSAL is nothing but instance. It's a type of source REST. So you could see that source of REST. Okay, the type. It's okay. That entire block, whatever the block here. Before that, let me talk about what is a data dictionary now. Okay, so you understood that what is a source system, okay, and in order to retrieve that information, okay, what are the necessary information I want to capture with respect to that. Say for an example, REST system means I want to capture that URL endpoint and then URL path, and then what is the data that I want to look into that. So for those information, then I think that definitions it's already defined in a node type, right? So if you look into that REST, here it talks about what is the URL path and what is the path, okay, and what is the expression type, whether we are going to use a JSON path or JSON pointer, okay, and input key mapping. Suppose if you are trying to access the data, then it needs like some input on a URI, okay, so that URI information, okay, that you want to define that, okay, that is input key mapping. And output key mapping, it's nothing but output key, it's nothing but suppose for an example you are trying to get a huge amount of data, you need only the subset of the data, okay, not that entire information. Okay, you want to have only subset of the data. Then for that we have output key mapping. So that subset of data should match with that particular dictionary of this definition. Okay. And key dependencies is nothing but whatever. Suppose if you are trying to resolve a particular variable, that variable should proceed to the next of other variable. Then those dependencies should be managed here. So all those here it's like a definition. Okay, assume that it's a node type. And coming back to that, okay, resource dictionary. Okay, and you are trying to create instance. Create instance is nothing but you are trying to create a node template for this. Okay. Node template, node type we have already defined, and all the sources are nothing but node template. Okay, this is nothing but one node template. Okay, with respect to model. So this is a Tosca model, right? That overall dictionary is not a Tosca model, but source is nothing but a Tosca model. Okay, this follows a pattern of Tosca. Okay, and I just for information in terms of building this form actually. Okay, suppose if I am trying to collect a source system, okay, source data, okay, for MDSAL. So in that case, the form has to generate, right? This form has to generate, or someone has to provide a form for it. So how it should generate that input? That this form will be generated based on that type, right? So we have a type, right? So this type will have the definitions for that. Okay, just before I have shown that type, right?
So in the data dictionary, the type is the selection will be based on type, right? Like
yeah.
They would not have MDSAL there.
No, they will have that MDSAL, but MDSAL to type mapping it's already configured. Okay, these two configuration will be there.
Okay, but where is that configuration? MDSAL to
right now it's a configuration. Okay, let me show that it is in an adapter configuration. It will be an application property. Okay, so we have a user story to retrieve this dynamically. Okay, for doubling. Okay, right now this configuration we are providing in a configuration. You are able to see that, right?
Yeah. I see it.
Okay,
yeah.
So DB is equal to source DB, input is equal to source input, default is equal to source input. Say for an example MDSAL. Tomorrow if I have a ANI, then ANI equals source REST.
Right. So I guess what you're saying, Brenda, is that we need to get the data dictionary as part of the creation, right? It needs to kind of share this resource source mapping.
Yeah, exactly. Think about like you are coming with a new system, definitely you know that, okay, new resource system, definitely you know that what kind of interface that you are trying to deal with. Whether you are trying to deal with, you are trying to bring a new data source or you are trying to bring a new system, REST system, right?
Yeah, I got it. No, this makes sense. Any questions for other folks? Swapnali, Priya, Samundu, Janani, Mario.
Actually, I have a question. Can you explain me the difference between input key mappings and the other one?
Yeah, output key mappings, right?
No, not output key mapping. I think dependencies. Yeah, key dependencies.
Yeah. Okay. Say for an example, you have a property 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So in this case, okay. So in this case, I am trying to define. It's like a it's just for test case perspective. MDSAL. Assume that this is a IP address. Assume that OAM local IP address. Okay, this name. So I want to retrieve this value. Okay. So in order to retrieve that local v4 IP address, I need a service instance ID. Okay. So in that URL, in that MDSAL URL, okay, the MDSAL URL, if you assume that network role, here see here VM type, okay, and then VM network role. Okay, this is a dynamic data, right? Okay.
Yeah.
You get this point, right? In this URL, this is a dynamic point, okay, dynamic point here. So what happens now? So in order to resolve this resource, I need to know this VM type and the network role, right? You agree this?
Yeah, correct.
That property is defined here. Okay, so it is like a network role and VM IP and VM type. Okay, so it means like, so if I want to resolve a particular resource, then I need a certain dependency. That dependency has to resolve earlier to that. Okay, that's where we are trying to manage here.
Okay.
You get that point?
You mean to say these dependencies will be resolved before resolving this particular MDSAL source.json,
Exactly.
this data dictionary. But why we require input key mapping also here?
Okay, say for an example, okay, this key name will be different, right? Okay, so say for an example, your property may have a different name, and here you may use a different name here. Okay, so always it is not mandatory. I can't use the same name as it is here. I may want to have a different name or two properties which holds a different name. So in that case, this format is completely different, right? So I'm trying to match that. This is the value it holds that. Okay, the property holds this value, but that URL pattern matches with this value, right? Okay. Yeah, and similarly output also. Okay, that response, whatever you are trying to get from that, it may have a different name actually. Okay, that response property name, it may have a different property name. So in this case, think about like a P4 IP address. But the problem is like I want to match this variable to this name, my name actually. So that's the reason. So you have a placeholder, okay, where we can define in a standard way, right?
Okay. Good.
Because this dependency may vary. Okay, this dependency is not a fixed dependency. So user can edit this dependency based on that transaction mode. Okay, you can edit that dependency and then change the configuration. Okay, for REST most of the times it may be the same. For database and other things it may vary. Okay, so that's the reason. So we want to maintain a consistency. So we are managing that, right?
Okay.
Before that, any other points that I want to discuss here? Okay, let me move on. Okay, so assume that, okay, so this is the type. So it means like you want to generate that form for a particular instance, okay, based on the type, okay, that source REST. Okay, I already shown. So this holds that information. This holds the definition so that you can generate a form from that property definition itself. Okay, you could see the type. It has a URL. Okay, it has a default value. It has a constraint also. Okay, constraint means valid values. Okay, it has a valid values. Okay, and then it has a so your form should look for this property and read these definitions and generate the dynamic form. Okay, based on the type. Okay, if the type is a string, then it will be a string placeholder. If the type is sometimes your type, think about like as I mentioned that output keys and input keys, it's like a map, right? It's like a list. You could dependency is a list. Okay, one example. Just before yeah. Okay, key dependency. This is a list. Okay, this is a list. So that is defined as a list here. So list of string, right? So it's a list of string. Entry schema is nothing but subtype actually. Type is nothing but the primary type, and entry schema is a subtype. So if it is a primitive, you don't see entry schema. Okay, if the type is a string, integer, or bool, something like that, then you don't want to have entry schema. Okay, in this case it's a map. That's the reason it's a map of string. But let me confirm that whether map on string it's supported. But I believe that if not, we will support that. If you look into that other things, right? Here string, right? So in that string, you don't see that entry schema. Okay, now you understand that what is entry schema, right? So if the type is primitive, then you don't see that entry schema. If the type is complex, okay, complex such as map, okay, or list, okay, then you may have that entry schema, okay. So and like from this form, from this property. So if the type is of string, if a particular instance is of type, then you can generate that form based on this type dynamic form. Okay, I'm trying to say that this is a dynamic form because tomorrow I may introduce a source gRPC. I may introduce that to any system with this model. Okay, only this model. Okay, node type model I can introduce, and then that form should be automatically dynamically generated based on the properties defined here, right? Okay. So like that, our ultimate aim from the UI perspective, it's to generate this in a form-based manner. Okay. So all those definitions are here. Okay, for a particular source. Okay, you have a type. From the type, you can define that what are the properties. Okay, see here, rest it's a type. Okay, type we have, and the type is JSON. This is nothing but a value. As I think you all know that node type. Okay, this is a node type. Okay, and this is a node template. Node template is nothing but instance in our terminology. Okay, so we have URL. So that is also defined as URL. URL is true, and you would see the required also. Okay, so it means like while form validation, you can use those information for your form validation.
So Brinda, for getting this a list of properties, right, or property definition. Is that going to be a backend API provided, or is it going to be just a query into properties?
It's a backend service. Okay, so we have if you look back my old recordings on face-to-face discussions and all those things, I explained what all these services exposed. Okay, even for in this case, I can tell that what all these services exposed. Okay, so yeah, under the controller blueprint, okay, we have a model project called service. Okay, the service. And SRC main, and then okay, under that RS we have a model type, right? Okay. This model type exposes that, right? So you can send that name, automatically it can retrieve that model type. That model type is nothing but the definition of that.
Right. In this case, the model type is sources?
The model type is a source -rest.
Source. Okay. So somehow we need to configure in the application what are the different model types, right?
Yeah, it is already there, right? That's what. No, we have one more services also available.
What I'm trying to say, the UI needs to have this configurable.
Yeah, during that loading time, it will try to preload some data. Preload means not that preload; it's like initial data, right?
Initialize this data. Yes.
Initializing data, already we have backend system. Okay, just I don't want to get that instance from a designer. We want to get from that backend system in order to have that. But you can model that. Okay, that's where no real confusion right now we have that. Two scenarios may happen. One scenario, it's like I may implement that new source later, but not now. Okay, I want to go ahead and do that design. So that is one scenario. Second scenario, it's like in that case, you can design a model, but you can't validate that model because that real instance is not available, okay, on a backend system. The second scenario is like, first I will try to implement the source system, then I will model my model controller blueprint. So that is the second scenario. So in that scenario, so we have an API also. Just let me show that API also. Okay. So here you could see that registered resource source, one API is there. Okay. So automatically it can look for that real-time system, and then it will return that what are the instances available for you. So it means like you don't want to configure or you don't want to hard code in your designing system. Just if you try to connect to this REST endpoint, you will get that list of all resources available for your system. Okay, so two options there. One is this way. One is actually accessing that real backend system to understand what are all the sources available. That is one point. The second way, it's like we have some API. Just let me show that already we have defined that API also. Yeah. So we have a get resource source mapping. You could see that, right? So this automatically looks for the property file, whatever the property file that we have, okay, whatever defined in the property file. So automatically it loads that. So in that case, if you're trying to introduce a new system and new mapping, new instance and mapping, just to put it in a configuration file, then automatically it provides a service for you so that UI can know that what are the mappings available. Okay, two ways there. And I think later point of time we can make a decision, okay, which one will suit for our case. But both scenarios may happen. So if we want to choose one case, then we want to compromise that. We want to compromise one thing, like either validation during the designing, or we can use a backend system to retrieve that information and then do the design.
So when you register your service, don't you need to have the models already available in order to do registration?
Yeah, no need.
No, what I'm trying to say is, what you're saying is there's two use cases we have, right? You can create the models and not register your service, right?
Yeah.
And later register your service. Or you can register your service but not create your models yet, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say, can we just make some sort of decision that in order for you to register your service, you need to have the models available as well? Does that make sense?
I could give that more priority or more weightage based on the backend system. Okay, so it is first duty to create an instance, at least to provide a wrapper or instance information. It's basically what instance that I'm going to have that. So that gives a concrete information for a designer. Okay, so in that case, have a backend system. Okay, just to collect that what instance is available. Okay, what are the source systems registered? Based on that, I can do that modeling. Okay.
Yes. So okay. So then we can say register is probably probably the primary way to go, right? Because that's more related to the back end, and the model should be available if you already register your
exactly.
service.
One more advantage, it's like I can test it immediately. That's another advantage. Okay. I can simulate the test. Right,
but in some cases, if you register your source, the model may not be there yet. You're working, and somebody selects it, and there's no model there, right?
No, you can register that model on designer time. Okay, on designer you can register that model, but runtime it won't be there, right?
Right. So going the path of register source is probably the way we should do it for our.
Yeah, that's what. No, it's like we can make a hard decision. Okay, if you're trying to introduce a new source, then register create an implementation for this and register it in a backend system. So from that, we can get that information. Okay, what all the registers. So in that case, it provides a way to test or simulate the test. Okay, very efficiently. Okay, it depends on that, but I give a more weightage on the backend system to register first. Backend system to first provide that implementation for that source system. Moreover, it is not going to change that frequently. The source system, it is not going to change that frequently.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. This is a. I think I'm speaking a lot. Okay. Whether we are in sync or.
Team, is this clear, or is there questions?
I have a query. Can you explain me how DB is used here? Like when DB, we say it as a source, then where we give the DB details?
Okay, let me show that also implementation. Okay. Okay, so assume that all those system or source information, source definition, it is going to be under the resource resolution, because as I said, it is specific to the resource resolution completely. Okay, so here function. Okay, let me take that code from code loader, right? This system is not my primary development. That's the reason I have a old code here. Okay, one second. Yeah. Okay. So see here, this is the pattern that we use. Okay. So let me talk about this processor. Okay. So here is a processor. So under that processor, I have a multiple data sources or multiple processors. Okay. Source system processors. Okay. So since we are having a database as a single database, assuming that now we have a single database, that's the reason one database resource assignment is there. Assume that you have a two different data source system. So in that case, your model should be first DB1 and DB2, right? So DB1 and DB2. Okay, so we want to have a processor for that actually. Okay, so this is a processor for that. So if you look into that, okay, that name of that instance, it's next to that resource assignment processor, because no, I should not give that name simply as a DB. So I use that pattern called resource assignment processor -DB. Okay, and similarly, if you have that REST, okay, so you could see that MD-SAL, right? Here you can, if you feel that if you want to reuse that same thing for multiple source system, okay, if that implementation and accessing authentication everything is same, okay, then you can create that and then have a multiple names for that. One is for MD-SAL and another one is for implementation is going to say, but based on this type, you are going to have a configuration for that, right? For a source system, you are going to have a configuration. So in this case, okay, that DB1, okay, the application.property, you are going to have a DB property. Okay, if you are trying to introduce a DB, another DB source, okay, DB2, then DB, based on the DB2, you are going to have a different property configuration. So in that case, based on that source, you are going to have that configuration. Configuration is a reusable configuration, right? So from that configuration, you can create a data source and call this processor, right?
Yeah.
You're getting it, right? How we are registering that multiple sources.
Mm-hmm. But where do we provide these DB details like path or?
In application property.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, in application property. So it means like what here I don't provide that implementation. So here what we'll do, you will have that connection. You will create a connection here. Okay, that connection, it's like get connection something, some method you will have that process, doing the process. Okay, what get connection will do, by passing this DB1, okay, you will retrieve that all the properties for the DB connection. Okay, if the connection is 2, then you will retrieve that 2 second connection, right? So here you want to implement this processor actually. Okay, how you want to access that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's where we are going to have one more service called the DB-lib or DB services, which is nothing but which creates a connection. Okay, just pass the configuration. That module take care of, or that module, it's a generic module which creates a connection which looks for the application property for a certain property definition and gives a connection, only the connection for you. So that it will be, this class will be very, very simple, just only by passing this property there. Okay, what property? Suppose if you want to create a DB2, then you will create a one more instance or one more class for that just by pointing DB2 and you pass that get connection instead of DB and you will pass that DB2 property.
Okay, got it.
Okay, like that REST also. Okay, REST I have given a simple REST. Some may be the configuration of SSL, some may be with the simple HTTP, some may be okay X authentication and Y authentication. You may have that so that you can create a n number of instances and map this property, this source name, okay, source name to retrieve that property and create that relevant connection for that. Okay, it may be a REST connection or it may be a database connection or it may be gRPC or any connection.
Okay.
And with this annotation, automatically we have an API. Okay, just before I mentioned that, right? Just before I have shown that service. Okay, this service will understand. Okay, if you look into that, it can understand that get beans. Okay, it will look for the resource assignment processor and it trims that value and returns as a instance name. Okay, what are the services registered? What are the source systems registered? It will return.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Yeah.
Guys, it's overloaded or?
So, Brenda, today we don't have this registration process, right?
No, for doubling it may be.
Yes, I understand. So I wanted to say that from a UI perspective, that system registration, is that like a separate section of the UI that we will have?
That's what I'm trying to say. That system registration won't be there. Why? Because system registration is a dynamic one. Okay, what you bring on a backend, it is available for you. That's what I'm trying to say. That I'm trying to show that it is a dynamic one. No need to have a separate configuration for you.
Okay, so you're saying system registration is only done as part of the development itself.
Exactly.
Okay, I got it. There's no UI needed for that.
Needed for that.
UI is only needed for creating your models.
Yeah, exactly. For that particular type. Okay, that node type. If you are trying to create think about like you are trying to create a model, you are trying to create an instance. Then you are trying to define that what properties to collect. That as a node type. That node type only that we needed. Okay.
So let me ask one more question. Related to this, you know how you showed the configuration file? Is the configuration file going to be part of our catalog as well?
No. That is the second option. Okay. That first option does not, it won't need that.
No. What I'm trying to say, today we don't have any configurations in the catalog, right?
Yeah, definitely. It is not going to be there in catalog.
It's not going to be in catalog. Okay, we're not planning to put configuration in the catalog itself. What I'm trying to say is that if somebody wants to add this configuration, they cannot do that as part of design time. They can do that as part of...
No, it won't work. Why? Because the configuration information is more of infrastructure perspective, okay, not on modeling perspective. Okay, if I'm trying to build a new data source, okay, that data source completely it is going to be specific to their environment, and because most of the credential information, it is not exposed outside in a catalog, okay, and even security mechanism, everything. So that is the reason it's on backend side. Okay, once you develop a new source system, or once you onboard a source system on a backend side, then no need of configuration for your design itself. Just access this backend system API, automatically you will get that. Okay, no need to do that. No need to do any configuration management or any UI registration process there.
Right. No, I just want to make sure I follow the process. So the process is that if you bring a new source system and a new model for, like you mentioned, gRPC, maybe, for example, then you have to first register that, a backend implementation. You got to create a model for it, and you also got to update your environmental
Only that word, just remove that registered, just implement that particular source system on a backend side, then automatically it is available for you.
Right. Okay.
Basically, someone need to code for it, Yuri.
Yes, absolutely. I got it. I just wanted to know all the things that would have to happen, and it sounds like there are going to be 3 things that will happen. So, all right, very good.
Yeah, sure. And I think I have provided that prototype. Okay, I believe that I don't have time to develop this, but I'm not sure. Okay, I think Yuri can coordinate for rest of the information. Just for starter perspective, I put that all this implementation available for you guys. You can just for understanding perspective. Real implementation means I think for this we need to work. Right. Okay. Other than that, everything is available for your for starter perspective. Okay, there is a non-blocker right now. There is a no blocker for you guys to go and do or take your user stories and pick it and do it.
Tim, do you have any questions on the data dictionary mechanism for creation of resources, how to create the forms based on the available registered sources?
Hi, Brenda. Is there any UI need to be attached with this, right?
May I know who is speaking? Sorry for that. Yeah. May I know who is speaking?
Yeah, Somendu here.
Hi, Somendu. Yeah. Okay. What exactly that you are trying to you are trying to ask? You are trying to ask that resource dictionary or resource dictionary that you are trying to ask, or you are trying to ask that source dictionary?
No, I am not. I am asking what will be the UI of the data dictionary total in whole. Is there any? Yeah.
Yes, Yuri shown that, right? One form earlier, if you look into that one form plain JSON content where we have a JSON content, that has to be rewritten as a form, okay, using that type as a definition. That generic form should be generated in order to create a new data dictionary. Yeah.
Okay.
Right, so essentially, this is an example of the current form. It's not like it's very, you can say, open for the users to create this JSON template. And what we want to do, instead of having the user create this JSON template, actually find what are the registered sources, and based on the registered sources, find the models and create a form based on that model itself.
Okay. Let me put that point in a summarized way. To create a data dictionary, you need that type. Okay, that type, what type that you are trying to deal with that, and you need that instance information completely. Okay, so to create a data dictionary, because data dictionary contains the definition of the property and as well as the sources of the property. Okay, so sources as well as it needs the sources. Okay, that sources, okay, for a property, for a data dictionary, it is user to decide that how many sources I want to include, because based on the property only you can tell that I need a source system X or Y or Z. Okay, some may not need a X, Y, Z. Some may be an input values. Always it may be an input value. So in that case, you are not going to define that rest of the sources. So only the sources. So just by selecting that, or once you come to that form, you know that what are the sources to collect. That sources information will be retrieved from the backend system. It means like what are the registered sources, it will be there. And with that type, with that registered type, okay, you can go to that model type service API to pull those definitions. Okay, so you will have those definitions. Now you generate a form for that particular source, right? So that user can enter, and if user wants to add one more source, then based on the second source, pull that model type from that backend database and try to generate the form. So, and finally, save that form. So it goes once again to the backend system of a resource or a resource dictionary to save that content in a JSON format. You guys are following, right?
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, very good. So I think for today we probably are good. I wanted to really cover data dictionary today. In the next session, what we'd like to do is cover the catalog creation. Okay. So anything else on data dictionary? Okay. So let me stop the recording. All right. So what I'll do, I know a lot of folks tried to access the recording and they weren't able to because they're getting prompted with a email. So instead of sending you the play recording links, for now I'll send you the download links, and you should be you should be able to download the recordings and then play them. I'm trying to see how I can fix this issue. I'm working with the WebEx team in AT&T, and hopefully we'll get that fixed as soon as possible so that we can just stream the recording and you guys don't need to download them.
Yuri.
Yes.
Sumindu here. In wiki, you didn't added the discussions of UI.
Right now, the issue I have, Sumundu, is that these recordings are not being played back for you guys, right?
Okay. No. Previously, the face-to-face meeting discussion.
The face-to-face?
UI recordings are not there, I think.
Okay, let me check. I thought I added them already. Let me check today, and I'll make sure if it's not there, I'll add them.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
Okay. Was there anything else? Okay. If not, we can adjourn the call for today. Thank you very much, team.
Thank you.
Bye.